I'm Gary Gatiss. I created G3 Coaching in order to help software people, both these and channel partners, take advantage of the huge benefits that are offered by the cloud marketplaces, and then leverage those benefits to be able to increase sales and accelerate deals. So I've got over 25 years of experience as an individual contributor salesperson selling a whole range of technologies. And most recently, I've spent the last 4 to 5 years learning the cloud marketplaces and building the best practices. And I started G3 just because I love the idea of helping other salespeople expand the skill set and ultimately make more money. And that's highly likely if you embrace this. So hopefully I'm able to share in a way that's understandable, consumable, and ultimately very effective in helping you to maximize sales and, of course, adapt to a changing world, which is changing quite a bit right now. And this fits squarely into a new trend, which is ecosystem-led growth. So in terms of agenda for today, we'll cover what is a cloud marketplace and why should I care, specifically from a salesperson's perspective. Very different message that's out there in the software ecosystem, and dispel a myth there as part of this process. And then how to access committed cloud spend. We'll spend time on that in the second part of the presentation. So the mission at G3 is to help ISVs, MSPs, and channel partners overall understand the benefits and advantages of the cloud marketplaces and coach salespeople on how to build them in to the sales process in order to maximize the opportunity that they present. We're going to start with what is the cloud marketplace and why should I care? And this is, again, specifically from a salesperson's perspective. So what is the cloud marketplace? Of course, I'm referring to the hyperscalers, so AWS, Microsoft, and Google. And it's best to start with a purpose. Why did they start these cloud marketplaces? It's basically to keep everyone on their platform and make it sticky. So there are two different revenue streams that they're able to take advantage of by using the cloud marketplaces. One is to increase cloud infrastructure spend. So they want to get more software deployed in their infrastructure in order to consume more infrastructure spend. And then also take a cut of each transaction, of course. So two different revenue streams, and it's the purpose of the cloud providers that's super important to be aware of as you're selling using the cloud marketplace and co-selling with the cloud providers. The concept itself is promoted or positioned as a software catalog. So the idea, of course, is that you can search for a product in the catalog. Once you find it, you can test it, and then you can actually go ahead and buy the software. See, no salespeople, right? Yeah, that's wrong. It's just not true. The catalog concept is actually kind of an oxymoron. Catalog implies that customers find a product and go ahead and order it. But the vast majority of software that we all know needs to actually be sold, or at the very least, it needs to be negotiated. It's very rare to have an enterprise software deal that doesn't have some kind of negotiations involved. So the only exception is truly if it's a commodity product. So if salespeople aren't driving customers to the listing, your marketplace listing is going to fail. It's just the way it is. There will not be many transactions there. It will not be a success unless sales is part of the go-to-market. So what is it to salespeople? It's really just a procurement option. It's a place to transact. That's it. That's really all you need to know. And you need to know how to use it, though. That's the important part. So why should you care? And that fits right into what's important to you. What's important to you is that there is a whole toolbox for sellers to use when it comes to the marketplace. There's amazing customer benefits that you can use throughout the sales process. There's a great co-selling advantages that you can use. And the whole purpose, of course, is to grow and accelerate deals. But something that is not quite as obvious is the ability to gain a major competitive advantage by knowing how to use the cloud marketplaces in the sales process. So I'm going to cover the benefits, and each benefit has multiple leverage points that kind of gets you that benefit. And you'll see what I mean, because the first one, maximizing revenue, there's a number of ways that you can do that using the cloud marketplaces. One is committed spend, which we're going to talk about in a little bit. There's also the co-sell opportunity. These are very, very powerful partners. They're some of the most powerful companies in the world that you'll be partnering with. There's a lot of advantages around that in terms of maximizing revenue alone. There's also payment options that can help you maximize revenue, and funding programs through the various cloud providers. There's multi-year deals that you can do. The next benefit would be to accelerate deals. And you could also use the committed spend to drive deals forward and close them faster. Again, the funding programs are something that can be applied to this benefit. The cloud providers are also sellers, so they're looking to close right away if they can. So funding programs are super important to use as part of the sales process, especially if you get involved in that early, so that when the time comes, you actually will be able to put it in effect. The co-sell is part of the funding programs, of course, but there's a broad range of things you can do with co-sell to help accelerate deals. And then there's payment options. So if a deal is slowed down or they lost budget, payment options through the cloud marketplace could be very helpful to keep the deal moving. Lastly, in this age, just attracting the powerful partners is part of the marketplace. So co-selling and the marketplace are kind of hand in hand. And if you know how to use the marketplace, then you can have better access to the cloud providers. You can differentiate yourself from your competition and other salespeople in general. They give you the ability to connect, so you can actually get together and go arm in arm with the cloud providers, being able to speak their language. And ultimately, what you want to do is add value to them. They're a very powerful partner, and if you know what they care about, that's going to help you in the partnership. Also, like I mentioned, this isn't quite as obvious, but you can gain a huge competitive advantage by working with the cloud marketplaces. Part of that is the co-sell that I mentioned, but there's also the committed spend. If you have access to committed spend and your competitor does not, you basically eliminate that competitor. There are payment options available that your competitor will not be able to provide, and the potential to do multi-year deals is more attractive if done in the marketplace. Also, you increase control, and that's probably obvious from some of the things I mentioned already in terms of benefits, but the co-selling enables you to increase control. There's a lot more of a broad coverage when it comes to cloud providers in an account, and the access to a lot of different people and how they do business. Everything related to the customer can be benefits you to have that relationship in place and learn those things. And really, the sales process wide approach, if you build in the cloud market-based benefits and co-sell into the entire sales process right from the beginning, then you have a much better chance of controlling things in your best interest. Also, you're able to improve customer relationships. This could align with the consolidation initiatives. A lot of customers are using that now, the cloud providers, to consolidate vendors and purchase all through, for instance, AWS or through Azure Marketplace. They can draw down their commit. There's payment options that they wouldn't have otherwise. They also could reduce the legal effort by using the standard contract that's provided by the cloud provider. So a lot of customer benefits, and probably one of the most important things to keep in mind is you're going to get left behind if you do not learn this. So everyone's going to get up to speed at some point, because it's just the nature of things is that this will be a standard part of the sales process in the future. But right now you can really use it to your advantage, and you can marginalize your competition. You can even block them in some ways. I included cancel on here just to emphasize the point, but really now's the time to get up to speed. Going into 2024, market seems to be changing a little bit. You can maximize revenue using the cloud marketplace and the sales process. You can gain competitive advantage, and of course you can lose it, but also the control of the process. If you know how it works, you can really build that in to great effect. So the point is, be the predator, not the prey. This came from my son's AAU coach in high school basketball, and I just love it applied to this context. So the next part is, how to access committed spend. This is very timely because the commit is typically tied to the calendar year. And I have an example to share with you that I'm going to show you a quick video. This is Peter Irwin and his experience working with the Azure Marketplace and the customer committed spend.
Cloud marketplaces have an amazing set of benefits that very few salespeople are taking advantage of right now. I mean, there's a real opportunity to sell way more and close deals faster. When I was leading a sales team at Spot by NetApp, I was involved in a big deal where one of my aides leveraged the cloud marketplace to take advantage of tripling his deal size. We got to a point with the customer where they were sold on the tech, and we started the how to buy discussion. While discovering that buying process, we uncovered that they had a few million in unused committed spend with Azure that was likely to fall by the wayside at the end of their Mac term in just a few months. When we asked them how much they had to work with, turns out there was $1.8 million on the table. I got to say, it was like discovering a golden nugget, only to realize it was just the tip of the iceberg. We suggested they use it to purchase 3 years up front, and the crazy thing is they were happy to do it. They spent money that was otherwise going to be wasted. The deal went from 500 grand to a 1.5 million, all collected and paid upfront. Just think about that. The deal tripled in size because we were able to use their committed spend. Not only that, but we locked them in for 3 years, and collected all the cash up front. I don't know what the process would have looked like without it, but I imagine we saved at least a month. Procurement suddenly accelerated, and they were happy to get all the approvals and financial benefits in place. It was Q4, so it was huge for us to get it closed in time, and it was all there because of the benefits of the cloud marketplaces. We sort of came across this by accident. G3 helps you build the benefits of this into your sales process so your team can proactively access that committed spend. But it's important to start early and use the benefits throughout. It's great that G3 will be offering courses in short segments that are specific to each step of the sales process, starting from the first intro to the end. You don't want to miss out because you didn't know earlier there was money laying on the table. I definitely recommend by listing in the marketplace, use G3 coaching to get up to speed. The differences can be dramatic.
So a pretty amazing story. Increasing a deal by $1 million is absolutely, significant, and not only to your own personal business, but typically makes a big with whatever company that you're working for. So I wanted to touch on prerequisites because I think it's important to know you can access it or what you need to have in place before you do. Obviously, you need a current partnership. You have to have access to a listing, of course, in the respective marketplace. And then the key thing, of course, is that the customer has a commit. Not all customers have a commit. Usually larger customers do. As you can imagine, they're going to negotiate a deal with any customer that has a significant amount of revenue that's tied to infrastructure in the cloud. But important to know, if the customer doesn't have a commit, it doesn't mean that you can't use the marketplace, because like I mentioned, there's a bunch of other advantages. They're not specific to the commit. So in other words, aligning with their initiative to consolidate vendors or offering payment terms is super powerful. So the commit itself, this word's kind of been floating around. I think a lot of salespeople have heard it, and it's unknown kind of what exactly it is or how it works. But a commit is actually a committed cloud spend. So, and this comes about by cloud providers negotiating based on a commitment to spend a certain amount. And then once that's committed, the customer has to spend that much or they lose it. So what's critical to understand for salespeople, if you have a listing in the marketplace, is that the committed spend can be used to buy your software. And I think that that's probably already clear by now, but I wanted to make a big point with this because it's actually the key thing to leveraging this option. So the commit by cloud provider, they call them different names. This is also super important to know. They typically do not use the whole phrase. They will refer to it, or excuse me, US will refer to it as EDP, and Mac, like Peter referred to in the video, what Microsoft calls their commit. And then Google is either a cut or a SUD. So using those terms will help people understand that you know what you're doing and that you're up to speed on the marketplaces and the cloud providers and how they work. And that also contributes to best practices with the co-sell situation, because what I have here in blue are the different names of the portals, but this isn't required in order to access committed spend or use the marketplace for a purchase, but it is definitely a best practice to partner with the cloud providers. And typically that's through the portal where you're entering an opportunity. The opportunity is essentially like a registration. It's very important to know how to complete the opportunity because they're typically under a lot of scrutiny. They want to make sure that the deal typically would be passed like 50% likely, because it's way better to have deals that are happening that are in the portal than to be reaching out just for the purpose of getting their attention. It could backfire if you actually do that. So the idea here is to identify and engage with the cloud provider sales team and be able to work with them so that you can combine the co-sell with the cloud marketplace. In terms of introducing the idea, what I've seen is that even though there are a lot of salespeople out there whose companies have a listing, or channel salespeople who can use a listing from one of the ISVs that they work with, and that's a known thing. People have heard of the commit, but there's big question marks about how you actually engage. How do you bring it up? How does it work if you do bring it up? Most people are not aware of this. And so speaking the language of the cloud provider is super important in this, especially in this context. And it's key to really approaching it with the customer. If you know what you're doing, then you can bring it up with them and have confidence that they can move forward, and they'll have confidence in you as well. And again, it's a major differentiator when it comes to the sales process. So I'm just going to go through a couple of different scenarios here where This is how you bring it up. I'm not going to read each one. I will provide the deck afterwards so that if you want to use this specifically, I purposely did this in a way that you can actually use the language here when you're talking to the customer. But what I have here is a long shot deal would be the first scenario where, say, they went dark and you can't get their attention again, or they lost budget and now things are stuck, or it's maybe an expand deal where you already have the software running it. They're already a customer in one business unit, and there's another business unit that's considering buying, but there's no way you get the deal before the end of December. In this case, bring it up. Hey, if you have a commit, do you realize you can use that to purchase our product? Of course, you would only say that if they were near purchasing and backed out at that point. But the point is here, bring it up and see if they have a commit, because that could open the discussion back up. You can find out if the deal is actually real. It's one way to find out. It gives you the opportunity to re-engage. And then, of course, by doing this at this stage on November 15th, trying to close the deal at the end of December, for instance, this gives you a real opportunity to do that. So the other thing is in the middle of the sales process, and this one is really, really important point here, is that if you look at the value associated with bringing it up, then there's a lot. So that's why it's super important to build this in throughout the sales process, the concepts and the benefits, because at this point you can trial close. So for instance, if you get to the end, if you're not familiar with that term trial close, it essentially means asking questions to find out how likely it is the customer is going to go with your solution. In this case, if you have two different procurement options, hey, you can purchase using a purchase order in the traditional method, or you can purchase using a private offer in the cloud marketplace. Would you be open to the private offer process? If they don't know what it is, it gives you a perfect opportunity to open up that discussion. If they do know what it is, it separates you from your competition if they don't have a listing in the marketplace or they don't bring it up. Most people are not bringing it up, so it's a major advantage here. If you're already in negotiations, it's not too late. You can just bring it up, and if you have that you have a listing, maybe it's just brought to your attention, so you have a reason that it wasn't brought up already, and you recommend that they check with procurement, because procurement may look at this as an opportunity. Hey, this makes you more valuable if they have a consolidation initiative. It makes you more valuable if they can draw down their commit. And of course, you can potentially grow the deal, which of course benefits you. The fourth scenario is just pricing is already agreed. Maybe the procurement process has already started. It's still not too late to bring it up. It still may be advantageous to the customer from their perspective to use a committed spend if that hasn't come up in the conversation and the procurement department knows about it. And even if they don't, and it's too late or the process goes forward, it's still something that separates you from other salespeople and other vendors. So once you've had that discussion and you brought it up with the customer, then it's the options that you have are to do what Peter did when he was at NetApp, which is to send a multi-year deal. The awesome thing about that is if they're going to use committed cloud spend, they pay the whole thing up front, which is absolutely huge. You can also sell additional licenses if there's a scenario where they need more seats or they need more nodes, but they were limited by budget. A variety of things you can use this for. Then when you get to the point that you're actually going to move forward and you're going to use that committed spend, it's a pretty simple process that you go through. This setup, what is, again, I mentioned the term private offer. It's really just a form that you fill out, and it's based on the agreed upon price. So if you see what I mean, going back to earlier of this concept of the catalog, really you're agreeing to a price and you're putting that in the private offer. You're sending that to the customer. You need to get their cloud provider ID before you do that, because that's required in order to submit the offer. And then the customer gets it, they accept the offer, and the deal is done. So you've completed the process. That's basically wraps up the committed cloud spend part of this presentation, and with a little bit of information, how things go forward after that, so you can have confidence in bringing it up. So I mentioned in the webinar details, there will be an offer at the end in terms of my coaching. I'm offering as a subscription. So this would include the multi-cloud package, would include all three cloud providers for a very inexpensive $30 a month. And there's a purpose in that, in the sense of taking this grassroots approach to growing by individual and then sort of moving up the chain from there. But a single cloud provider course, if you're only going to work with one cloud marketplace, would be $20 a month. So the course itself, like I mentioned several times, builds in the benefits of the cloud marketplaces into the sales process, so you can really effectively leverage them throughout the deal. And then, of course, each session is related to a part of the process, so it makes it easy to reference in a current deal and super handy, for the future. The content is simple. So what I'm trying to do is really simplify things and make it easy. and only the things you really need to know. The sessions are brief. I'm trying to do everything in less than 5 minutes. You do the course in your own time. You can finish it in a couple of days, or you can finish it over a period of time. You could never do the course and just use it for reference. It all kind of makes sense within this kind of a packaging. And typically it'll be 10 to 15 sessions per cloud provider. So I'm offering this today, and I'll follow up with this email, but $20 a month for the multi-cloud package once it becomes available in January. So the key thing, though, too, is it could be free. This can typically be considered education. That's something that's expensable. If you expense that, then basically you have this free coaching available throughout the year. And it's a great thing for G3 as well, because you're bringing this to the attention of management. Management may ask you why you're doing this, and that might spread things out to other parts of the sales force. It feels likely, considering how powerful this information is and how effective it will be if all the entire sales team build into their process. You can also use MDF if you're a channel salesperson. And I'm working with one of the channel partner of IBM right now to get that done. So that's another opportunity. In addition, I'm going to have an affiliate program, so you can bring this up to your friends. If they sign up, you'll get paid. So essentially, it'll be free if you expense it, and you can get paid for using it if you use the affiliate program. And that includes people within your own company. So that's why the grassroots approach, I think, will be very effective here, is that selling to individuals could expand pretty rapidly. So any help you can give in terms of promotion and spreading the news would be much appreciated. This is the beginning of things. So I really appreciate you joining. And if you do have any questions in the future, please let me know.